Hi everybody, Dr. Joan Ifland here. Just so glad to be with you today. I have a very important topic to review, and that is how weight loss schemes make food addiction worse. There are three ways that weight loss schemes make food addiction worse, and one is that weight loss schemes often create nutritional deficiencies. Two, the scheme can include addictive foods, which of course make us more addicted. The more we use addictive foods, the more addicted we become. And then finally, the weight loss scheme might actually cause stress. And stress is a leading cause of lapsing onto overeating. So let's go through these one by one. So how could a weight loss scheme promote malnutrition? And why do we care? Well, why does that make us eat more and become more obsessed with food? Well, because we have a reptilian brain, which is constantly watching to see if there's enough food and enough nutrition. And that reptilian brain is very on or off. It gets stronger and stronger, stronger. And when it's on, it can actually control our behavior. And what is it doing? It is saying, eat, eat. If you find food, you eat it. That's what the reptilian brain will do. It will control your behavior. If you're malnourished, it will make looking for and eating food the highest priority in your life. So how does this work? Well, one thing is that calorie restriction brings on fear of famine to the reptilian brain. Fear of famine is very justified because famine is the leading cause of death for the earth for all times. So we are hardwired to fear famine. And when we don't get enough calories for enough time, every day that we don't get enough calories, the reptilian brain makes a note of that. Oh, we didn't get enough to eat today. Oh, we didn't get enough to eat today. The reptilian brain doesn't really know about weight loss. It just knows, oh, we were hungry today. And so it kind of creeps up and gets more and more control every day that you don't have enough calories. And then eventually it will grab that behavior center and you will be eating. And even whether you want to or not is not the issue. So whether you want to or not eat is here in the frontal lobe. This is where we say no thank you. This is where we say I've had enough. This is where we say I don't want that. But when the reptilian brain or the craving brain gets a hold of your behavior center, it actually competes with the frontal lobe and shuts it down. So every day that you don't get enough to eat, you're making that reptilian, very reactive, very primitive part of your brain stronger. So the next thing that can happen is that a food plan might be missing some kind of essential item. It might be missing fats, for example. And if the brain doesn't get fat for long enough, it will send you looking for it. And again, that reptilian brain, you got to remember the brain is encased in fat. So it's very sensitive to how much fat you have. Every cell in the body, the membrane of every cell is made from little tiny microscopic droplets of fat. Your entire nervous system is encased in fats. So you've got to have fats. And in our culture, of course, there are fats everywhere. Processed fats or high-fat dairy, maybe not the best fats. But your reptilian brain, once it gets control of that behavior center, it will drive you to eat fatty foods. You don't want to be. Here in the frontal lobe, you're saying, no, I don't want that. We don't eat that. But the reptilian brain has taken control by not giving the body enough fats or enough carbs or enough salt or enough protein. That reptilian brain will eventually get control. And it'll just say, you are eating this, and you're eating it, and you don't know why, because your frontal lobe has been turned off. I hope that makes sense. The next thing that can happen is our culture is very big on like having an egg without the yolk or having chicken without the skin. Well, I got to tell you, in primitive times, if a person climbed up a cliff to get into a bird's nest, or climbed up a tree. Remember, the birds are just going nuts. They're attacking this person. If they go to that much trouble and they actually get some eggs, they climb down, they still have the eggs, they're eating the eggs. The body says, yes, we got some fat. Because fat was very hard to find in primitive times. Animals were very lean. You had to find nuts, or you had to find a plant that had fat in it. So, oh my goodness, a bird's egg was so valuable. And they would be about this big. You know, they're not the big chicken eggs that we have today. They'd be tiny eggs. So if the person got down, that body would be so excited because it was going to get something really, really nutritious, very hard to come by. So the body is like, yes, we're getting an egg yolk. Oh, this is so exciting. And every part of the body is like, ah, I can't wait for the egg yolk. And then they get the egg yolk and they're happy. But when we crack open an egg and we don't get the egg yolk, our body goes, ah, where's the yolk? Where's the yolk? Go get the yolk. There was a yolk. Go get the yolk. And then all day long, you just don't know quite why, but you're having cravings for fat. Or if you eat chicken, can you imagine like a primitive person? They finally get an animal with some fat on it. They're like, their body is so excited. Yes, we're getting some fat. Yay, how nutritious. We're going to be so happy. And then you eat the animal and there's no skin. It's like the body is, go back and get the skin. The skin must be around here somewhere. And again, you find yourself eating fat that you were not planning to. So this is why dieting makes us crazy. It increases food obsession. So another thing that you have to be very careful about is weight loss surgery. We do know that malnutrition is associated with weight loss surgery. So please, 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 before you get weight loss surgery, try getting enough support. This is a really severe addiction, and you might need hours per day. Maybe you don't need it, but you need access to it. So you need to get an online group that has enough support through the day to keep centering your attention on eating unprocessed foods and getting through the addiction. So the next thing that can happen is you can be using liquid replacements. And a lot of times these liquid replacement meal programs, they just have you go straight back on to processed foods when you're done. And I've had one person after another who's gone through these programs. As soon as you put the addictive foods back in, the addiction is reestablished. So the addiction recovery approach is like the recovery from alcoholism. You just take the addictive foods out of your food supply, and then you eat these gorgeous, unprocessed, non-addictive foods. So it's just like a smoker who breathes clean air. It's like an alcoholic who's still drinking water, but water that doesn't have alcohol in it. We're still eating food, but food that doesn't have processed addictive substances in it. So that's the difference. All right, so what is the next category of reasons why dieting makes food addiction worse? Because diet products are addictive all by themselves. And we see this, the big diet companies often sell food products along with their services. You will see somebody become successful in with a diet book or a diet program, and then all of a sudden they're manufacturing bars or frozen items and desserts. Those are addictive substances. It's just the height of irony that a weight loss program would manufacture and try to sell to you highly addictive substances, food-like addictive substances. So that's the big one. That's what you've got to watch for. This is a way that weight loss games actually make the addiction worse. You don't have enough calories, which is aggravating your reptilian brain, and you are putting addictive substances in instead, which is activating your craving brain. So now you're like really, really obsessing about food and wondering why. It is not because you don't have enough willpower. you have plenty of willpower. Willpower is in the frontal lobe. It's the part of the brain that says, no, I'm not eating that. But when you get the craving brain and the reptilian brain going together, they're competing with the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe will lose. So you can't get to the braking system. You can't get to your willpower. The reptilian brain, craving brain have taken over your behavior center, and you're in the grips of an addiction. That's what being in an addiction means. So it's not because you don't have enough willpower. It's because the diet industry is selling you products that actually cut off your willpower. Okay. So the other really just crazy trick is when food manufacturers, they give you a big volume of something, but it's packaged in little tiny, way too small servings. Well, everybody can just open up the whole thing and eat every serving in the package. So that whole idea that you would just have this minuscule serving and that you would be satisfied with that is craziness. So that the ideas about serving sizes and the way packaging is done for these highly addictive, quote unquote, diet foods actually makes food addiction worse. And then you have some systems where you get points. So you're encouraged to save up your points for the weekend, for a weekend splurge. So all week long, because you're saving your points, you're under eating, which means that reptilian brain is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's just getting more and more control. So by the time the weekend comes and you have all your splurge points organized in front of you, the reptilian brain and the craving brain, especially if you're spending your splurge points on addictive foods, something that's sugary or has flour or high in fat or dairy or caffeine, the craving brain is going to also step in. Those two parts of the brain are going to grab control of your behavior, and you are going to be binging. So you spend your splurge points, and then you go straight on, and you spend a lot of other points too. So the whole point system encourages food obsession. It encourages food cravings. It encourages empowering the reptilian brain. All of those combine to absolutely shut you off from your willpower. Your willpower is only in one part of your brain, but these other parts of your brain are very, very, very strong. And that's why you overeat. That's why all of this dieting makes food addiction so much stronger. And then you have artificial sweeteners in these products. So the diet products themselves are addictive. When you taste an artificial sweetener, here's what happens in your body. The taste bud says, wow, a whole lot of sugar is coming, because they're quite intense. So your pancreas says, wow, a lot of sugar is coming. And your pancreas releases insulin to drive your blood sugar down, so that when all that sugar gets there, you won't die, because high enough blood sugar can lead to death, can diabetic coma. So the pancreas immediately gets busy and starts driving blood sugar down. Well, then there's no sugar, but you've got low blood sugar now, and that sets you up for cravings. So now your whole body is scrambling. Get some sugar, get some sugar. Where's the sugar? Where's the sugar? And you're overeating. You didn't ask for that. That's the craving brain. That's low blood sugar. All of these factors combining to cut you off from your willpower. Okay? And then the whole exercise thing, the diet industry and exercise, like, you know, imagine that you were an alcoholic, because that's what we've been given. We didn't ask to be addicted to sugar and gluten and high-fat dairy and excessive salt and processed fats and caffeine. We didn't ask for it. But when the tobacco industry came in and took over processed foods in the 1980s, they used that tobacco model, highly addictive product formulation, just loading up these processed foods with sugars and salt and processed fats. They loaded up the products with addictive substances. They advertised them heavily, especially to children. They put them everywhere, very available, and then they made them very cheap. That's exactly what they did with cigarettes, which is why 2/3 of American adults smoked at one time, and now 2/3 of American adults are either overweight or obese. In fact, 2/3 of Americans, including children, because they got to children on this one. So this idea that you are going to get over these toxic processed food substances by exercising is totally delusional. It is something that the diet exercise industry has done deliberately to divert our attention from reality. So you would never say to it, say you had a beer addict and the beer addict had gained weight. You would never say, oh, just exercise that off, you'll be fine. No, you've got to address the alcohol. Or you say to somebody, it's like somebody who's maybe anorexic. You would say, maybe they're using a drug, like maybe they're smoking so that they don't eat. You wouldn't say, oh, just eat more, you'll be okay. Just gain some weight, you'll be okay. No, you have to deal with the cigarette addiction. So saying that you can exercise and get over the cravings, the compulsion, the obsession with these processed foods is just ridiculous. You can't, there's just not enough exercise. You would never say to an alcoholic, oh, just exercise, you'll be okay. You cannot say to yourselves, oh my goodness, I've been given this food addiction, I'll just exercise it off. It will not work. So exercising is another delusion. And also it sets people up to eat. They say, oh, well, I've exercised, now I can eat whatever I want. Can't, no, of course. And then you will see in every celebrity diet book, you will see this big section on desserts. They'll even put desserts on the cover, and they'll try to get you to think that you can eat that. Well, no, you can't. You're recovering from an addiction, and the first thing we want to do is get all the substances out. Okay, and then for our third category of why dieting makes food addiction worse, we're going to talk about stress. Because these are stressful food plans, they encourage food obsession. You know, you're having to count calories, or you're having to count macros, or, you know, just something ridiculous. And it encourages the obsession. You know, people say, oh, keep a food diary. Well, yeah, is it? Yeah, no. You want to just get food obsession smaller and smaller and smaller in your brain and make more and more room for your frontal lobe so that you can enjoy life. You enjoy life through your frontal lobe. So this is something you definitely don't want to do. You don't want to do anything obsessional around food. And you have the use of pharmaceuticals. Some of these pharmaceuticals are very stressful. They're meant to improve mood, but then they're very hard to get off of. Doctors have been surprised at how hard it is to take people off of antidepressants. So that can be stressful. And then you might be really monitoring your body shape. How much am I losing? You might be having scale obsession, like where you're hopping on the scale hundreds of times a day. So all that dieting can be really, really stressful. It can be very judgmental. And then, of course, because of what we've been talking about, at some point you will fall off, or you will lose the weight. And you will think, oh, now I can eat whatever I want. And that stress, that long-term stress of not having the right nutrients and not having enough calories will catch up with you. And then you'll just find yourself eating. So stress is a big cravings trigger. Stress pathway and craving pathway are intertwined in the brain. And when that stress pathway gets triggered, the craving pathway will activate. So then you get things like, I hate myself, but I'm going to eat it anyway. Stress and cravings in the same thought, very tightly entwined. It's called thought fusion. Okay, so hormone therapy and the weight loss drugs, these are all short-term things that actually mess up our systems and make it even harder to recover, to stop the cravings. So thank you so much for listening. I'm Dr. Joan Ifland. Please talk to your health professional about these issues. And you can find us on Facebook. We have a free group, Food Addiction Education, but work with your health professional. Thanks so much for listening. Dr. Joan Ifland, signing off.